You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Hey everybody, happy Monday. We hope you love Mondays.
Or just Monday, depending on how you feel about it. It doesn't have to be happy.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
I
it
thought,
could just be Monday.
yeah, okay, all right. Well, either way, it's better because now you're listening to The Bible Guys.
Have a Monday.
Okay, all right.
There you go.
I'm with you on that.
Okay. He's Chris.
I'm Jeff. He's Jeff. And we're The Bible Guys today.
Well, that was a rough opener, buddy.
Hey.
It ain't going to get any better than that this week, people.
We are diving into Luke 15, which is continuing our series, What If Jesus Had a Podcast?
Yeah.
And it goes with famous sayings. And today's famous saying is, this brother of yours was dead and is alive again.
Ooh, this is one of my favorite stories.
It is.
You and I just preached on this a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we did at Heritage of the Hill.
Yeah, this is going to be great. Well, hey, first of all, we have the only segment that has an official theme song.
Yes.
Right?
Which is Mailbags.
There you go.
Yep, Mailbags. We actually have a letter in from Sarah L.
Hi, Sarah L.
Sarah L. says, my husband and I love listening to you two every morning.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you, Sarah. And she says, what's your, quote, I can't believe this is my job, unquote, moment?
Ooh, can't believe this is my job moment.
Yeah, I can't believe this is my job. I remember the first time I've ever thought that in ministry.
Yeah?
Yeah, in fact, I know the very night.
Okay.
It was when I first went into youth ministry, and I couldn't believe that I was getting paid to hang out with teenagers. Because when I went into youth ministry, I was only 21, and so I'm only a couple years removed from being a teenager, right?
Right.
And I remember I had an all-night video game night. Now back then it was PlayStation 1. That's how old that was, right? And remember Sega Genesis with Sonic the Hedgehog?
Yeah.
Okay, so I called it an all-night Segathon. And so we had, basically we locked ourselves in from like 11 o'clock at night till 6 in the morning. It was an all-nighter. And we had other things also. But one of the things that we had was like 18 or 19 video game systems that were all over the church.
Wow.
And anyway, and so here I am just like staying up all night. The music's going. There's like strobe volleyball in one room. I'm playing Marvel superheroes on the PS1, on this massive projector on the size of a wall that's like as huge as, it's the whole church auditorium. And I actually remember thinking to myself, I'm actually getting paid right now. Yeah. Like I'm getting paid to do this, to have fun all night long. 2 nickels
and a bag of chips, but at least you're getting paid.
Right. Slice of bologna and an old record player is my bonus. But still, yeah. But I'm still getting paid. And I remember thinking, and I said out loud, I said to my wife, I can't believe this is my job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a similar one, except it's slightly different. So I worked at a church, and I was the everything else pastor. Were you ever the everything else pastor?
Always.
So this 1 week felt like it was never going to end, and the highs were so high, and the lows were so low. So I was the worship pastor at the church, and my wife was also in the music department. And after service, the pastor had wanted me to include both modern worship and some old hymns and gospel songs. He wanted me to kind of blend those. And that doesn't ever make anybody happy. Nobody's happy, right? So I had a lady come up and tell me off.
Sure.
Not congratulate me or thank me for the 2 songs that I put in the thing for her. She was mad at me about the song I put in that somebody else would like, right?
For the other
different
people.
style. And then as soon as I got done with her, I had somebody come up and tell me I was a little bit of a coward because I didn't have the guts to just go ahead and make the full change.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So I had both sides of the aisle were mad at me.
Sure.
So that was my Sunday. On Monday, normally that was our day off, but I got called in. And there was a problem with the water main out at the road.
Sure there was.
And so water's just spraying out, and we got the water turned off, and then found out it was going to be like $1,100 to repair it, and the pastor didn't have the money. So some farmer brings his backhoe over, digs this hole. It's like 8 feet deep, and nobody wanted to get in it, so they made me get in it. Water spraying everywhere, and I had to take off this old coupling and put in a new coupling, and the walls keep falling in. So all I'm thinking is I'm going to get crushed underneath these things. And it was about 60 degrees during the day in the morning when I was working on it. My feet got numb, my hands got numb. I'm just shaking the whole time. And this was my Monday and my Tuesday.
Okay, it sounds like those are two very lows.
Yeah.
Very low lows.
So then Wednesday night, I was the youth pastor, and I was also overseeing our Awana program. We had about 200 at the time, about 250 kids in the Awana program, and both of those nights were big evangelism nights. So I ran in and I spoke in the children's thing, and then I ran over and spoke in the teen thing, and combined between those two things, we had like 20-something kids give their life to Christ, right, between teenagers and children. And it's a big mental shift. To shift from teaching children, walk right out the door and go teach teenagers, right? It's a big mental shift.
Big time.
And so I came away going, this is amazing. I can't believe I got to be a part of this. And then on Thursday, I was rushing because we had this massive event coming up on Friday night into Saturday. On Saturday, we had like 400 and something teenagers show up. We had 20 something kids give their life to Christ for that. And then on Sunday, the next Sunday, we baptized like 30 something teenagers and children in the church. And so I remember looking back that next Sunday going, I got beat up. I almost got hypothermia, led like 50 kids to Christ and baptized 30 of them. What a week. I can't believe I get paid to do this.
Right. Yeah, wow.
It was so hard. The whole thing was hard. But at the same time, the fruit was amazing. It was great.
Yeah, dude, those were the weeks.
I also cleaned the bathrooms on Thursday, by the way.
Of course you did.
I did.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty humbling experience when you're paying your dues at a smaller church and you're the everything else pastor.
Yeah.
Oh, the everything else pastor is rough.
Yep.
But back then you have so much energy and you have so much, naivety, right? That you're just like happy to be there.
Yeah, well, I just felt like it needed to be done.
Sure.
And if I didn't do it, who was going to do it?
Right. Yeah, but now, I'm just like, whew, I think about those days. I just want to take a nap.
Yeah, it was amazing. So I can't believe I get to do this moment. I can't believe this is my job moment. Yeah. I get it on both sides.
Yeah, and I still get it at those moments, like Freedom Hill. That was that kind of moment, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like I can't believe this is our job, kind of a moment.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful. We baptized 250 people.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So, good stuff.
There you go.
There it is.
Well, do you have another one? Do you have anything else you need to share for Sarah? That was a good microcosm of how it works.
Yeah, I would just say ministry is one of the most difficult and the most rewarding things in our case, right? Because we're both in the same profession. There's other people listening who are thinking, hey, my job's very similar, right?
Yeah.
Like there's not that much difference sometimes with, especially if you deal with people, like customer service, things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that it's harder than all of our listeners, but I am saying it is very taxing because I'll tell you why. Because let's just say something goes wrong in a church, right? If you have a bad behind-the-scenes staff type leadership experience, the problem is that it is not only your place of employment where you get a paycheck, which is, your source of, income, but it's also your church, the place you worship, right? And so when you work at the place that you worship, sometimes you don't want to see how the sausage gets made.
And looking for pastoral care and all those things.
Yeah.
That's where you get it. Yeah.
And then on top of that, it becomes your social network.
Yeah.
And so it's like your entire social life is wrapped up in most cases in the church. And then it's a faith kind of a thing where you sort of judge people. Are they acting in leadership? And is that the way that Christ would act? So there's this measuring of like business versus faith relationship. And sometimes that's difficult.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's very, very taxing because even though that other people work at other places, the good news is it's not the place you worship unless you work at a church, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I would say the other difficulty of ministry, the other challenge of ministry, there's a lot of difficulties, but the challenge would be it's 24/7. There's never a time you're not a pastor at the church.
Right. You don't get to clock out.
So we can have a church person go out to a party on a Friday night, have one too many, get a little wobbly, and nobody will go, oh, I can't. And he's an engineer.
Right. And he's an engineer.
Right?
I can't believe an
I
engineer.
thought you were an engineer, right? No, nobody does that. But we're always, and our families are always under the microscope all the time, because there's never a time you're not the leader of a church. And so that pressure can be significant. So there's some challenges that I think people don't see, but the other side of it is the blessings are just incredible. Like you said, when we get to baptize 254 people on a weekend, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's just unbelievable we get to be a part of that. So yeah, it's the highs and the lows.
Yep.
Oh, what a great question, Sarah.
Yes, and speaking of great questions,
Yes.
Jesus asked a pretty significant question often to the Pharisees, not in this passage, but oftentimes.
I was like, what questions did he ask?
Oftentimes, he asks questions. Although, hey, wait a minute. I should have said the older brother asks a question.
Okay, yeah, the older brother asks a good question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. Okay, well, hey, we are in Luke chapter 15.
Terrible transition.
Boy, these poor people today having to listen through there. They're probably going to go, boy, they're having a rough morning.
Give me grace, people. It's Monday. It's Monday.
In Luke chapter 15, the Bible says, tax collectors and excuse me, wow, this little cough won't go away. Tax collectors and other notorious sinners often came to listen to Jesus teach. This made the Pharisees and teachers of religious law complain that he was associating with such sinful people, even eating with them. So Jesus told them this story. If a man has 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what will he do? Won't he leave the 99 others in the wilderness and go to search for the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he will joyfully carry it home on his shoulders. When he arrives, he'll call together his friends and neighbors, saying, "Rejoice with me, because I found my lost sheep." In the same way, there is more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than over 99 others who are righteous and haven't strayed away. Or suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Won't she light a lamp and sweep the entire house and search carefully until she finds it? When she finds it, she will call in her friends and neighbors and say, "Rejoice with me, because I found my lost coin." In the same way, there is a joy in the presence of God's angels when even one sinner repents. To illustrate the point further, Jesus told them this story. A man had two sons. The younger son told his father, "I want my share of your estate now, before you die." So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. A few days later, his younger son packed all his belongings and moved to a distant land, and there he wasted all his money on wild living. About the time his money ran out, a great famine swept over the land, and he began to starve. He persuaded a local farmer to hire him, and the man sent him into his field to feed the pigs. The young man became so hungry that even the pods he was feeding the pigs looked good to him, but no one gave him anything. When he finally came to his senses, he said to himself, "At home, even the hired servants have food enough to spare, and here I am dying of hunger. I'll go home to my father and say, 'Father, I've sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as a hired servant.' And so he returned home to his father, and while he was still a long way off, his father saw him coming. Filled with love and compassion, he ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. His son said to him, 'Father, I've sinned against both heaven and you, and I'm no longer worthy of being called your son.' But his father said to the servants, 'Quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him, and bring a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet, and kill the calf we've been fattening. We must celebrate with a feast, for this son of mine was dead and has now returned to life. He was lost, but now is found.' And so the party began. Meanwhile, the older son was in the fields working, and when he returned home, he heard music and dancing in the house, and he asked one of the servants what was going on. 'Your brother is back,' he was told, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf. We're celebrating because his safe return.' The older brother was hungry and wouldn't go in, or was angry, and wouldn't go in. His father came out and begged him, but he replied, 'All these years I've slaved for you, and never once refused to do a single thing you told me to, and in all that time you never gave me even one goat for a feast with my friends. Yet when this son of yours comes back after squandering your money on prostitutes, you celebrate by killing the fattened calf.' His father said to him, 'Look, dear son, you've always stayed by me, and everything I have is yours. We had to celebrate this happy day, for your brother was dead and has come back to life. He was lost, but now he's found.'" Well, there you go.
I would say it has to be in my very, very top teachings of Jesus, right? So I think Luke 15 sort of drives most of who I am. And I kind of felt that way even back when I was a teenager. So when I was a teenager, I had a pretty rough go, you know, and even at 15, I know 15's pretty young to receive Christ, but I kind of felt like I lived a lot of life up until 15, you know?
Yeah.
And I felt like it was a pretty rough go, and our family was kind of rough. Our background was kind of rough. And, it could have been a lot worse. That's for sure. But anyway, all that to say, I remember discovering that Jesus loved me. I felt like the lost son. I felt like the lost coin. I felt like the lost sheep. And I felt like God pursued me and came after me and saved me and rescued me. And then almost immediately I had a desire to help those far from God, right? So in my youth ministry, we always would have a visitor contest where we would bring, so many visitors, or guests, and the most, if you brought the most guests for these kinds of things, and man, I was just great at it, if I do say so myself, right?
Yeah, you were, well, as humble as you are, we've already established your humility.
I'm the most humble.
Yeah.
But you know what I used to do? We used to play poker on Saturday nights. So I would invite everybody over. Talk about some church people are like, I can't believe you're saying this on the air. But we did.
Trust me, it's not the worst thing you did. When
yeah,
you were
that's
13.
right. But we used to do. So what I would do, my strategy was I would say, hey guys, come over for poker. And we would have, I'm not kidding, sometimes 8 to 10 people over my house, which was a lot for my little house. And we would play poker, and sometimes it would be terrible, but sometimes we play all night, not even go to bed. And then say, okay, everybody, let's go to church. And which was not a good formula. But we'd only play nickels, dimes, right? It was just, $5 or something, And then the winner who won all the money, because there would have to be a winner, he agreed to buy everybody breakfast. So it was really paying for your own breakfast.
Right.
That's what it was.
Right.
But anyway, that's what we would do, and that was my strategy, and that is how I brought people to church, and we sort of.
So your first key evangelism strategy was running an underground casino
Yes.
in order to get people to go to church.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll be honest. I
would not advise that at this stage in your walk with the Lord.
No, I don't think it's the most effective method. It is a method.
Yeah.
But
it's a thing.
It's a thing. But let me tell you something though. They ran a contest saying whoever brings the most guests from January to May, the top 5 people gets to go to Ocean City, Maryland for free. And in those 5 months, I think I won. I hate, I know it's going to sound terrible, but I won every year. Okay, so all 4 years I was in the youth group. And I think I won with about 160 or 180 people.
Wow.
Right. And so
Right.
so I was bringing 160 or 100. I don't think it was.
Just
sometimes,
going and getting kids and bringing them to church.
Well, sometimes my guest would bring a guest the next week.
Yeah.
Then that would count double for me. So I don't think it was 180 individuals.
Right.
But I bet you it was probably 110, 120 people.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. So
it's amazing how many people will say yes if you invite them.
Yes.
Right. Most
Yes.
people just say that they've never been invited.
Right.
Right. That's what most people say.
Well, I mean, if you take a survey amongst our people and say how many of you came by personal invitation, that's most people.
Right.
Right.
But then if you ask them how many of you invited somebody this week,
Right.
it wouldn't be very many, right?
Right.
And that's the gap. The majority of people who come to faith get invited to faith.
Yeah.
But most people, less than 5% of all Christians will ever be a part of leading somebody to Jesus personally. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So there's the gap. There's so much opportunity. And so the whole premise behind these stories, it's not about the sheep. It's not about the coin. It's not about the son entirely.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about the fact that the shepherd was willing to sacrifice everything to find the lost sheep. Right? He was willing to do everything in order to do it. It's all about the fact that the woman tore her house apart to find the coin.
Right.
It was all about the fact that the father was waiting, looking for his son, and as soon as he saw his son afar off, he ran to him.
Yeah.
Right. That's
And-
the hero of the story.
and brought him in.
Is essentially God. God is the shepherd.
Right.
God is the woman looking for the coin. God is the father waiting for his son.
Yeah.
Right.
And let's not forget as well the details of the story. There's so much we could teach, but we've taught it 100 million times. But one thing that I've loved reading, gosh, not even maybe 10 years ago, I read, I forget the author's name, but the author talked about how God actually ran to both sons, right? And so it's like, so he runs out to his lost son, But then the older son is so discouraged, he goes outside, and it says his father went out to him, right? Mm-hmm. So his father was seeking the older son just as much as he was seeking the younger son, which is so beautiful, right? To understand that God the Father loves the 99 and the one.
Right.
There's a note right here in my Quest Study Bible that I've been using, and it says, "Why so little concern for the 99 sheep left in the open country?" And it says, "They were not left unattended. We tend to assume there was only one shepherd, but the Middle Eastern shepherd would rarely go out alone with 100 sheep. If a sheep was lost, the head shepherd would leave the rest of the flock safe and content with the hired helpers and go and search for it. God does not abandon his followers, but he zealously seeks the lost."
Yeah.
Right? So, and any shepherd, by the way, hearing that would understand that.
Sure.
If a man has 100 sheep, immediately you think, okay, what kind of operation is that?
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not sure that I have contemplated that people might think he left them alone.
Oh, I've thought that
that's
all
amazing.
the time.
Yeah.
Because
I guess I've always had the idea shepherds didn't work alone.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I always thought, yes, that's the first thing people would think, because it says he leaves the 99.
Yeah.
Right? And so that word leaves is a
Well, he did. Yeah.
strong word.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did, right. But it doesn't mean that his operation of 100 sheep it's not a one-man operation.
No, there's no way it was.
Yeah, no way. Mm-hmm. So, but either way, though, I love how the lost coin and the lost sheep stress that there's more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner than over 99 that are already Christians. And so I always like to point out that it's more. It says more rejoicing. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not rejoicing over Christians, right? It doesn't mean that there's not plenty of rejoicing over Christians.
Right.
It just means that there's more rejoicing over a single person who comes to Christ, which means the heart of God is for the person who is far from him or who is lost. And so that idea of going out, the importance of that lost sheep, the importance of the coin. And then the heart of the Father, the lost son, shows the heart of the Father, right? Like how much he loves the lost coin, the lost sheep, the lost son,
Yeah, all three stories have that, right? There's more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents and returns to God. Mm-hmm. In the same way, there is joy in the presence of God's angels, even when one sinner repents. And then at the end of the one with the prodigal son, and so the party began, right? And so that's one of our goals. I think about this often. I just want every chance I get to start as many parties in heaven as possible. That's I think about it all the time. So yeah, that's kind of neat.
You remember Jonah? Jonah has 4 chapters, and remember Jonah was so mad at God, and then God teaches Jonah a lesson. He gives him like a gourd or like a tree, right? Mm-hmm. And then the tree withers up, and Jonah gets mad, and so God says to Jonah, "You're more angry over this plant than you are over the fact that an entire city was far from me."
Right.
And then what happens is the story ends, and we are not given Jonah's reaction, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like we don't know if Jonah said, "Oh, you're right, God." We don't know if Jonah finally came around and said, "I repent. You're so correct." Now we are left to assume that he does, right? But there's a master storytelling method here, where the father in this case looks at the older son and says, "We had to rejoice." And I love how he says, "This son of yours," and then the father turns right around and says, "We had to rejoice because this brother of yours, is now found." And then it ends, and so we're not given the reaction of the older son, and so
I can tell you what happens.
Yeah,
the younger son goes to work for the older son, and the older son inherits everything his father had. That's what happens.
Right.
Eventually, because the older son didn't ruin his life.
Right.
He just had to adjust his attitude.
Yeah, right. But in this moment, this moment, there needs to be a realization, right? Because the son obviously does not get it. He doesn't understand, and he's angry and everything else. But the realization part, it's just I love Jesus's master storytelling kind of a thing where we become the Pharisee in the story. We become the person that's sort of like the lesson goes to us, and we are left to decide how are we going to react.
Well, all of this is in response to the fact that there are the deeply religious, shocked that Jesus is trying to reach notorious sinners.
Right.
Hey, wait a minute.
Right.
This is all supposed to be for us.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus is like, no, it's about reaching them, right? It's about the ones that the notorious sinners. Jesus wasn't becoming a notorious sinner. He wasn't letting them affect him. He was trying to reach them and bring them to God, right? And to change their life. And so this happens a lot where sometimes church people get mad about the fact that there's, surprising sinners sitting in the room or whatever.
Yeah.
And, Jesus just didn't tolerate it.
Yeah, I remember one time, I'll tell you a real quick story.
Didn't tolerate the bad attitude about the fact that there were sinners in the room. Let me say it that way.
Yes. I remember Dave Wilson told a story about he was the Lions chaplain for 30-something years, and they had a Bible study, and they invited somebody who was not a Christian from the Lions. He was a player, and every Bible study he would bring alcohol. Oh, and then he would like pour the wine and say, "Hey, everybody, let's drink," or whatever. And there were some deeply religious, faithful follower people of the Bible study that says, "Hey, we have to disinvite him. We have to ask him not to stop coming." And then Dave Wilson's like, "Listen," he goes, "I don't think that bringing alcohol to a Bible study is a good idea." He goes, "But I am not going to." He goes, "Do you understand the kind of people that we want to come to here are those kind of people?" Because he just doesn't know any better. Right? He just doesn't know that that's probably not a good thing to do at a Bible study, right? And so he's like, no, we're not going to disinvite him. In fact, we're going to make him feel comfortable as much as we can, and still being in the guidelines of our own conviction, that kind of thing. But we're not going to offend him and ask him to stop coming. Well, it turns out that they led this guy to Christ eventually because they didn't want to shun him. The religious leaders shunning somebody or whatever. So so he leads them to Christ. And that guy turns out, I wish I could remember who it was, but this guy leads, he was the backup quarterback, and he led Baker Mayfield to Christ. And so who's now Dave is mentoring currently. Yeah. And who was it? Stafford? It wasn't Stafford. It was... but anyway, it doesn't matter. But it was somebody on the team who ended up coming to Christ and leading other people to Christ, and it was all because they attracted somebody who didn't know any better, right? And that's kind of a brilliant thing, right? When people who have no idea who God is walk in through the door, notorious sinners.
Oh, sure,
right? And they have no idea. Like we had one lady in Vacation Bible School who had a shirt on that was inappropriate, and I was like, she doesn't know any better, but I'm glad she's here. Right. But change your shirt.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, well, hey, that's definitely our time. So we'll see you next time on the Bible Guys.